Good evening. We have just returned from executive session to discuss issues covered under purpose number 1, which is to discuss the reputation, character, physical condition, or mental health rather than professional competence of an individual, or to discuss the discipline or dismissal of complaints or charges against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual. And the individual to be discussed in such an executive session shall be notified in writing by the public body at least 48 hours before the proposed executive session, provided, however, that notification may be waived upon written agreement of the parties. And that would be the superintendent and director of student services. And we met for purpose 3, to discuss issues related to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body. And that is the Medfield Teachers Association Units A and B, AFL-CIO custodians, cafeteria workers, and secretaries, and to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for non-union personnel contract negotiations for the superintendent. So now I will, thank you, masterful. I will now call to order this March 10th, 222 regular session of the Medfield School Committee, beginning with a roll call. Leo Brehm. Here. Thank you. Leo is taking care of a small technical issue over there. Tim Knight. Here. And Megan Glenn. Here. And Anna Mae O'Shea Brooke. Here. And Jessica Riley. Here. I want to let you know that this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the Medfield TV YouTube channel. And then we move on to public input. Citizens at this time may address the committee on items of school business not on this evening's agenda. The committee will take such items under advisement without action or discussion at this time at the meeting in which the item is presented. And so all comments will be taken in person and limited to no more than 3 minutes. And please state your name and address for the public record. So if you'd like to approach the mic, if anybody has a public comment. Holy cow. All right. So we were going to do approval of minutes, but we're going to hold those off until until March 24th, our next meeting. And we're going to move on to new business, which would be CPAC update. All right. So Dr. Martin or Mary, would you like to introduce, or would you just like to? Yeah, you can come up to the podium if you like. Hi, Kristen. How are you?
How are you?
Very well. This is Kristen Martin, and she is the president of CPAC. And please go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to address the school committee and the community. I'm Kristen Martin at 91 Green Street, and I am the president of the Special Education Parent Advisory Committee. CPAC asked to be put on the school committee agenda today so that we could formally respond to misinformation conveyed by Lauren Liljerin and Dr. Laura McCullough at the school committee meeting on February 10th. As many are aware, these individuals disseminated baseless claims about a link between wearing face masks and autism. We stand here today to set the record straight. There is absolutely no accepted scientific evidence that substantiates the claim that face masks cause autism. To suggest this causal connection is not only irresponsible, but also harmful, as it inspires fear of autistic people. The CPAC meeting on February 15th, Dr. Carol Wilkinson, a developmental pediatrician and neuroscience researcher, refuted those remarks. 76 community members attended this meeting, many coming together to learn about autism and discuss how Medfield can come together to enhance our understanding of differences, leading to acceptance. In order to make systematic, meaningful change and growth, we all need to be open to engaging in and learning from difficult conversations. At the same CPAC meeting, Dr. McCullough apologized and admitted that she made a mistake. That took courage, but it would have taken more courage for her or anyone in the room at the last school committee meeting to repudiate the inaccurate remarks at the time and stand up against ableism. We are vaguely aware of a policy that the school committee members are not supposed to engage with the public commenters. However, the school committee chair did in fact engage with public commenters, but she did not address damaging and false content. Furthermore, we are aware some people in the audience clapped after the remarks were made, and no one stood up to disavow them that night. That's one of the reasons why CPAC is here today, to do just that. We recognize that everyone makes mistakes, and we are certainly open to forgiveness. The wounds inflicted run deep, and the hurtful remarks are hard to forget. At the same time, CPAC stands united to speak for those who are some of the most vulnerable people in our community, those who are often not given a voice, even if they have the confidence to speak up. We firmly believe that the community has a long way to go regarding education about differences. We are asking that the school committee examine the curriculum taught in the schools about disabilities, disorders, and mental health, and help ensure that our students and staff at each and every school in Medfield are educated on these topics and at appropriate developmental level. I'm not done. Sorry, I think I just lost.
So you have plenty of time. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Sorry, this is very hard for me to speak out loud. It is important for students and staff to be aware of all disabilities, visible and invisible, and how to connect and better appreciate what these students and peers need to feel understood, respected, and embraced. We want to promote acceptance and inclusion, and indeed celebrate the differences that make each of us unique. So with that, CPAC is requesting an action plan and how our concerns and feedback will be addressed. Will there be additions to the health, wellness, guidance, advisory, or other curriculum? Will there be professional development on neurodiversity and mental health? While we are an advisory council, we want to work with the district to ensure programs are implemented to address acceptance and inclusion of all differences, as it is the district's responsibility to educate the whole child. In addition, we endeavor to work with the district and other organizations to host speakers and programs to educate the community. We also won't forget the friends who reached out to CPAC members, attended our meeting, and offered their support. We thank you and hope this sentiment continues and promotes positive change. It is obvious that we need to do better as a community to educate ourselves and combat ableism. Thank you for your time and allowing us to come and speak to you. You can tell I'm talking to myself personally, not for CPAC right now. Very difficult for me to get up here and speak. As you can tell, I am physically disabled. As you hear me talking, I also have intellectual disabilities as well. So it's very hard to not only discuss ableism, but to confront it. And to have the ability to speak to the community about it is very hard. So thank you.
Kristen, can I speak to you about my experience?
Of course.
That night, because I think that it does make it ties into the experience that perhaps you had, which is as a parent and as a mother, I literally at the time felt gutted, and I did not come out of myself enough as a parent to be the chair to say the thing that I wish I had been able to say for the last 2 weeks, which is, wait, what? And for Mrs. Lilligren, she had for 3 minutes. Always looking for that. Oh my God, I have never expressed an emotion in this.
At least that's
well,
nice, right?
let it go.
Laughter's
but
good.
it was quite literally, I was gutted. And so there are times where you look back and you say, I wish I had been able to bring myself back together. I wish I had been able to. And I'm sorry that I didn't. And I hope that next time I could. And we all make mistakes. And I know that even those of us who live with others, we think about our kids when they grow up, and we hope that there is a community that is also willing to accept that there are mistakes and things we do sometimes that we don't want to, or that we wish we had been able to make better. So thank you for bringing me to us. I think it's, there's a Buddhist who says, you know, you look at a situation and you're pretty sure it's going exactly the wrong way. But in the end, you look at it and say, was that a good thing or a bad thing? The thing that happened was bad, but what comes of it can be good. So thank you for getting up. And thank you for speaking to it. And thank you for not letting it go. And thank you to the 2,700 people who have viewed the YouTube video, which brings the school committee ratings up far and beyond any of the energy committee, sorry, or anybody else in town. But I wish that we had more of a positive than what it was.
And the goal is that the community, which we have seen has come together and will continue to be together, and to determine the best way moving forward for not only our children, but ourselves in general, to make sure that we, because it's very easy to fall into the ableism, just like out of habit of being good-natured and wanting to help people, and realize, wait, what am I doing? Am I really talking down to somebody with disabilities, or not understanding what's going on in their lives? Because it's hard as a parent, as somebody, a parent of a child with autism, and he's got a long road ahead of him. He's very young.
But I want to address your ask in terms of, sorry, crime's contagious. But I'm sorry that you endured that, and that there was not an immediate response on the floor. And however, with situations, we often say teachable moment, and you're right. So the light is the community coming together on the whole and shining a light on this. But your request of, what is the school going to do to educate, do a better job of educating our population, our community? I hope that we can, get something in order in terms of good. And, and I think, for example, the Best Buddies Club at the high school, that is such a robust club. It's one of the most popular clubs. And I'm just wondering if, I think students themselves have a very powerful voice, and that is a group of allies. And I'm just hoping more connections can be made, because I think they can make a difference within the trenches themselves as well. And thank you again. You're very brave. I know it's difficult to be up there, so thank you.
I think that there's also a real place for making sure that inclusion is not about clubs or special times, but is about every day, every time, every lesson, every classroom, every situation. So while Best Buddies is a great program, it is not.
No, I'm not saying it's the be all end all, but I'm saying that there are groups out there who want to help, and that's just maybe a little fraction of something more that has to be done in our community. That's all I'm saying. I'm not making it, I'm pushing it on this club.
Well, I would also, I'd like to say too, I think that, and as a parent of, children obviously in the district, I found the culture to be very inclusive in the district so far. So I guess I wouldn't want to turn a negative eye on what the successes we already had in our schools. You know, we continue. I mean, there's always room for improvement, and we will all continue to push on that. And we should work with CPAC on that. I think it was unfortunate to see the disregard, but to the sensitivity of what was being said, for sure. I was also in a state of shock, but also in the interest of staying focused on the subject that was at hand. I really wanted to make sure that we were all here today without masks, okay? Or it was an option. So that was one of the hyper focuses for me. But at the same time, obviously reflecting on it immediately, you know, I think you're right in the sense of we cannot forget that the culture in our town of inclusion doesn't stop at the school door, right? It's part of being in the town, and I still see it around the town. And I guess I'm trying to paint a rosier picture to the place where we live, right? Because we all moved here for a reason, and or work here for a reason. People love the culture here, and so I think we can put some attention to it and celebrate it better than we have. But unfortunately, that meeting definitely showed a lack of sensitivity to what was being said, for sure.
The masks actually have made my son look at eye contact. There's finally eye contact.
Yeah.
There never was before, and there finally is, because you can't look anywhere else. So
It's one of those interesting things.
yeah, there's always a silver lining,
Come out of that.
but just
I'd just say about repeating it. I can't tell you how many times after I said, I wish I can have that 15 minutes over. That happens to all of us sometimes. We can't. You know? One thing I hear, and it is interesting, I do think you're not pointing out a wrong that occurred in the schools with the students. This is a community wrong. And you know, your words, work with the district to educate the community, is really where you know we can absolutely help. I think that's an area I constantly talk about. So I also say, sincerely, that's all I can say. Is I said, how did that happen? And we can't have a do-over. But I think it is good to give us say, hey, we need an action plan, and I think the community is at the center of educating, because that also I think, highlighted that there's a lot of work to do around education in that for all of us. So you know, I thank you for coming here tonight and sharing, and you know, I hope on this we will see positive change. But I wish we don't need something like that to drive positive change. I just wish that didn't happen.
I want to clean sweep of the committee here and just offer my apologies as well. And it physically pains me to hear you say that our silence hurt you even more. And for that, I want to try to and make it clean sweep. But and I saw the CPAC meeting, and I saw how emotional you were, and that also hurt. And I'm not making any excuses, and I wish too that maybe we were like, you know, that time could have stopped at that moment. There was a lot going on at that meeting. Not that that's an excuse, but I think we were all seriously overwhelmed with what was happening in front of us. And I mean, if we could have just paused at that moment, I think this, you know, we can't have the time back, but let me just offer my apologies and applaud you for a success. I've been on that podium before, and it's scary. And we hear your message, and you know, remorse for what this actually caused.
I actually want to thank you, the CPAC, of taking charge actually as a result of it. Immediately.
And organically and bringing people together.
Yeah, I think that was, I commend you for that, because I think it was needed to happen, and you rose to the, although it was unfortunate, definitely rose to the occasion of what needed to happen. It was your place to do so. I really appreciate you guys doing that. So.
Chris, I just want to thank you for, sharing what you did tonight, and just know that Mary and I have had several meetings since that was last meeting, and we were working on curriculum, looking at it at each grade level and making sure that it's done well and done correctly, and we'll be making some changes in other areas.
Thank you.
You know what, just one last thing, and I think that it speaks to this. I have a very dear friend whose son has a spectrum disorder, and he was talking about his diagnosis and talking about how he talks to his peers. He's in an out-of-district placement. And, it's almost like, we've always used the words, we always talk about it. And I don't think she would mind me saying this, that he said, Mom, I don't use the spectrum disorder. I don't say it. I tell people that I have ADHD, because if you say you're on the spectrum, other kids will think you're not okay. So I say ADHD, and I think that that is just the most instructional statement from a very bright kid who just knows that right now people don't do as well, and that we need to expand that definition of what is okay and what people are and how we think, and that it's just a different part and a different way.
Well, it's highly mislabeled too, like
Yeah.
ASD is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
but there is work to do. And then, he's in an out-of-district placement in another community with Iowa, so it's not just Medfield specific. These are kids who are in a separate classroom.
Well, the
So
country
even
needs
they
it.
are internalizing these adult messages.
The country needs education, and we can start. We can't educate the country, but we can educate our community and the schools and the parents, because it's not just the kids, it's what they go
And it's what we
and see at
understand.
home.
And it's the amount of norming that we do, that we decide what's kind of the straight ahead norm, when really, like, you won't run into any place where everybody is exactly the same. We tend to, I think, sometimes think that way.
There are wonderful programs out there that we've been researching as a CPAC, and understanding our differences that runs out of Newton is an excellent program that I went through when I was a child, and I still remember it. Elementary school, remember doing it. So there's just things out there. It's another thing to really look into. But thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you for
Thank
yours.
you.
And I'm sorry that we've had to take up so much of it. That's our fault. It's not supposed to be what it is. Thank
That's
you.
what we're here for. We're here for that's why we're here.
Thanks. Do I have any public input? Anybody who could compliment such an elegant presentation, or who would like to stand up? I'd be very happy to hear from you too. Do you want to stand up, or you want to?
I apologize, I have to excuse myself.
I'm glad you can hear that. Thank you. Leo has to leave us for work. Oh, okay. Well, we still have quorum, but Leo has to leave in 2 minutes in a moment. What we were going into next is actually Mary's tiered focus monitoring. Mary, do we have the technical stuff going?
No, so
Would you like to draw?
it's great.
Would you like us to kind of, well,
So in one of the very few times, no one here will be able to see what I'm talking about, but those in the great world of Zoom will be able to. So I'm going to share my screen here. I'm happy to just add in some extra words for anybody else that does not have what I'm showing. So hold on 1 minute so that the Zoom world can get here. Yes, if you look really carefully, you can see it on the screen here.
The other way.
Yes, there we go. Flexibility is the name of the game. Thank you very much. Oh, look, we have multiple options here. Get close, get cozy in a nice COVID-friendly way. So thank you very much, everyone. I'm Mary Bull, Director of Student Services, as most people know, but those in the Zoom world may not. And I'm here to talk about tiered focused monitoring. So this is a process that Medfield Public Schools, or every public school district in the state of Massachusetts, goes through. It was formerly called the Coordinated Program Review, which we affectionately refer to as CPR, not the nursing related CPR, but CPR that we've gone through for many, many years. Every 6 years, Medfield Public Schools was assessed on all on all standards kind of completely. They did visits, they did interviews, all of that. That process changed, and it is now tiered focused monitoring, both cycle A and B. And Medfield Public Schools, because we went through a full CPR in 2018, Medfield Public Schools was slotted into the group B, which had 18 civil rights standards and 10 special education standards. For those of you that can see the slides, there's a nice little wheel that kind of explains exactly the process and what is involved. So in year 4, it talks about a self-assessment, year 5, on-site monitoring and reporting, and year 6, continuous monitoring. So the next slide that goes through all of the civil rights standards that we were assessed in for this current cycle. So again, I'm not going to list them all out. I'm happy to share slides with anyone that cannot visually see it right now. You don't have to admit what your vision level is if you're having difficulty with the screen or the paper, but I can share anything. These are all of the assessments that are the standards that we were assessed for civil rights. And then the next slide goes through the special education standards that we were assessed in as well. So each district is also assigned a tier, and these tiers are based off of and then our technical assistant is monitored based off of that. So these are based off of your own risk assessment that is designated by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and it's typically used by the accountability level and then the special education determination along with risk factors such as problem resolution system complaint data and public school monitoring report data. So previous reports from the past that were going through the CPR cycle. So for Medfield, we were assigned tier 2, which is a directed improvement or low risk with risk assessment data indicating low risk in areas associated with student outcomes. 70 to 80% of districts fall in tier 1 or tier 2. So the components that are part of the process, they do interviews of administrative, instructional, and support staff. They also do interviews with the PAC representatives, and then they do observations of classrooms and all other facilities, and they kind of walk through a sampling of things. And then the final piece is surveys of that they send out to students with disabilities, parents of students with disabilities. And then after all of this is done on their end, they set you up with a continuous monitoring program. And so that again is based off of what tier you were assigned in the beginning. We were assigned tier 2. So we have a continuous improvement monitoring plan, or a SIMP. And that basically, because Desi loves acronyms, so we always have them. So the SIMP plan, we work directly with Desi to kind of look at any findings that they had and to map out a plan for how we're going to solve that. So the timeline for Medfield in particular, that's kind of the overall new process of what TFM is. For Medfield Public Schools in the spring of 2021, we completed our self-assessment, which means for those 28 standards that they identified, we need to provide evidence based off of exactly what they're asking for. So some of them, they say you need to provide X, Y, Z, A, B, and C. And then we are also able to kind of provide over and above that if we feel that we have examples or things that we want to showcase that also meet the standard that they may not have asked for. All of those get uploaded one by one into the system to show that we have evidence of everything that they've requested. And then that is shared with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and they review that. So we uploaded in the spring of 2021, and in fall of 2021, the department connects back with us and offers technical assistance. So this basically is a kind of feedback on our self-assessment. And then I met weekly with or every other week with our review chairperson from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education from October 8th until January 3rd. Every other week we met, had conversations, discussed what we were doing within the district, went through any changes that we were making, updated policies that were on the works, everything that we were doing in order to demonstrate compliance in all areas within this. On the week of 11/29, so right after Thanksgiving, we decided that if we had sent it right before Thanksgiving, it might not have hit as many people in the mailbox that people would notice. So we waited till right after Thanksgiving. Desi sent out their survey to all parents to receive feedback directly about Medfield Public Schools. And then during the week of January 3rd, they were on site, which included tours of all 5 buildings. They started off with kind of very brief, we just want to be able to see about 5 to 10 minutes worth of the buildings. The morning of, it turned into, we have about 45 minutes to 60 minutes per building. And we want to see absolutely everything. So I can't thank everyone in the buildings enough. I was walking around with 2 people that no one had met in the middle of a pandemic, all masked, everything, in order to make sure that they were able to see everything. Administration was incredible. The faculty were phenomenal, and the students were fabulous. I mean, that was all they kept saying at the end of the tours, that it was wonderful seeing the buildings, it was wonderful seeing the administration, but they couldn't get over seeing the students in action and how amazing they were in interacting with the adults as they came in, with how polite they were in the hallways, with how engaged they were with the work that they were completing. So it was really wonderful, to just kind of see that myself, and to kind of see it from outside eyes as well.
It was just a regular day because they had told us, as Mary said, they were just going to stop 5 minutes, check in.
So no one.
And when it was one person, and then 2 arrived, and they met with Mary and I at the beginning. And they said, no, we want to go to every classroom and we want to see everything. So they got to see it unannounced, and it was great.
Yes.
And they came back, and the feedback was really, really positive. So
It was great to hear. They also did interviews. Thank you, Kristen and Catherine, both here, with our CPAC chair and vice chair. And then they did interviews with myself and Dr. Marston as well. So the only finding that they found during this process was for CR 10B, which is bullying intervention and prevention. So for the district, we do not have a staff code of conduct that addresses the responsibility of staff when responding to instances of bullying and addressing the bullying of students by a school staff member. It's important to note that we do have the information in all of our staff training. So every staff member goes through a training on the bullying intervention plan at the beginning of every year. And this is a key component to it and stresses all of this. It's also part of our policy and part of our plan, but of the bullying intervention and prevention, but it is not part of a separate code of conduct for staff, which then would be reflected in our code of conduct, staff code of conduct policy as well. So what Desi is asking is that we take the language and the slides and everything that we use for those trainings and that are already a part of our bullying intervention plan, and take that and put it into a wider staff code of conduct, and then use that staff code of conduct to guide our policy. So we have until December of 2022. We have 2 check-in points, one being in September, and then the final one being in December, to showcase that we're developing this staff code of conduct and that we're putting it in play to help develop a policy as well. And that's it. It was a long process, but it was.
Wanted to know what a director of student services does when she's not.
Yes.
Kid-to-kid contact and special development of teachers and anything else. Mary is talking to Desi.
Yes, a lot of.
I mean, I just want to add that this was a ton of work, and Mary did an incredible job with it, and just the meetings alone, and as bringing stuff back to you with policies and other other interventions that we need. I mean, just did a phenomenal job. So I can't thank her enough for leading that process and the zillion hours you put into it. So
and even starting from the CPR which I literally was at that meeting where we all sat down at Memorial School. And Jeff was like, you know, we've got a meeting today. Would you like to come? And I'm like, sure, yeah. And knowing the amount of work and how far this has come, what you have done in so many ways, and your staff to really kind of flesh this out and really go through this process. I want to thank you very much. And to kind of get to the point where the finding is that you need to put this bucket of paper into a different bucket of paper, you know, which I know sounds a little reductionist, but it's to some extent, the things that we are doing, we now just have to put in a different form to tell people that we are doing them. And that's a really amazing outcome. Because there are many districts that have many harder rows to hoe on that one.
Yes, it's exciting. I think we have a lot of exciting changes and things going in play. And the department was excited to see a lot of them as well. So, you know, I can't thank, as I said, staff, administration, everyone. This process is, Jeff had mentioned, is massive. And so just going through it, the amount of time and support that I had from every person in this district, I can't tell how many times I feel like, you know, I'll call, I need help with this, and this, or, you know, that morning, literally sending text messages to the principals being like, they're delayed at this school, we're going to be at this school, they need a lunch, they haven't had water, they have to, you know, people were just so flexible. Learning center teachers, specialists, everyone had us in the classrooms. Students, like I said, you should be proud of your kids. They were phenomenal that day. They're phenomenal every day, but you know, it was great for them to get the recognition of all the work they're doing.
Or the amount of times Mary put this on the leadership agenda.
I know.
And everyone go, oh.
I think Jeff's glad that it's gone, just so you don't put it on leadership agenda anymore. I would leave it open-ended and just say TFM update.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you guys have any questions for Mary?
Thank you. Thank you.
Does anybody in the audience have any public comment that they would like to make? Come sit down, or anything about this process for the public comment?
Thanks, Mary.
No? All right. Wow. Okay. So the next item up for business is, let's go to you, Hilly, which is the Medfield Energy Committee presentation.
I need a little bit of technical assistance because I need power on my laptop. It's a
Oh.
little aging, and so I'm gonna see if I could pull it over there a little bit.
I'll get this over this morning.
Yeah, would you mind? Just a little.
This is also part of Mary's
Mhm.
job, unless
This is
it's part of
embarrassing, right? The
Michael's.
energy committee
AV
needs,
stipend.
energy committee needs battery help.
It happens. We're not judging around here.
You think I can get it up there?
I certainly can.
Would you promote me so I can share?
I'm sorry. What?
Owen needs to promote.
Oh, somebody needs to promote me.
Okay.
I do it.
Do you want me to do it? Is he here?
And we truly hope that it works better for you.
Children?
Well,
Yes.
now nobody can see what I'm talking about.
But there you go.
I think, did you just get the,
Yeah.
perfect.
Oh, do you disable screen sharing? Lee, is this slide deck in?
And then you want to let
I sent it to
the people out there.
And to, I wanted to send it to you. Love to see it.
Do you want to just go on to Zoom right now? And I don't think I got.
Children, can you
slide
do
deck.
share?
I sent it to your official email,
Okay.
Was it last
Then-
like 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, that's just a letter though, right?
Yeah, I just got a letter and I never got a,
I don't have a slide deck though.
I got
I
a
sent,
recording of some sort. So, and then you said that you would have the slide deck later, but you, I mean, you
no,
can get it
no,
up there,
I
right?
sent something to your official email like at 6:58.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, but
Oh, of
it's
course.
just a letter, right?
Thank you.
I'm humor too.
We are
Is
extraordinary.
it letting you
letter.
share?
Hilly.
It's a PowerPoint. And I just sent it to, I can send it to you right now.
No, I can.
I see
I'm
something
going.
from Hilly, but Tom's
Going in.
cap presentation.
Yeah.
Hold up, folks.
That's whitehouse.gov.
Okay, I've got Word doc here. All right. Oh, no, I have a letter. I do not have a.
No. Sorry?
Sure. If you want to send it out, that's great. We'd love to have that. It's okay. Thank you all for, and I'll just take this moment to say that Tim Knight and Leo Brem both had to leave for different reasons. Tim was not expecting to leave, but did. Leo had to take a call because he's very important on the West Coast. So he came here for the first part of the meeting to be able to hear the CPAC presentation and be able to do executive session. It was unable to be here for the rest of it. So I think Anime, Megan, and I can pretty much fix everything from here. And we will soldier on. And what Hilly is doing right now is emailing us the slide deck of her presentation so that we can have it in our records as well. And then she'll share.
She sent it on February 28th.
No, I just sent something right now.
The school chair.
PowerPoint.
Yeah, and it was embedded in.
Was it embedded in there? Okay.
Oh, no, that was a
different thing.
previous presentation. I cut it back,
Oh.
you know, Madam Chair gave me 10 minutes.
I gave her 10 minutes. I was very structured about what we did. Knowing that sometimes things take a little longer than you think they might.
I have 11 slides and I'm gonna.
So you just let us know when we can have those to you.
Yeah, just
go next.
I sent it to you.
Start and I'll
Okay,
keep
so,
looking for things.
so first of all, thank you for having me here tonight to present the Town of Medfield Climate Action Plan draft. I really like what I've heard so far this evening because it really is in line with what we are thinking. We're doing this climate work exactly for the same reason that you are on the school committee and you're an educator. We're working for the next generation. And we really have to keep that in mind as we go ahead. And we all know that there's a climate crisis. It's really an emergency. Just last Monday, there was a report released by the UN on how bad it is, worse than when we thought. And we really need to plan for this. We really need to get our act together. And I see this, you know, we're considering a whole child and the whole child education and community education all being part of our task. So this is really in line with what we're thinking too. So our work really began last year in May at town meeting. The town residents voted overwhelmingly, near unanimously, to support the Massachusetts state climate goals and to encourage the town to take action in furthering of the Massachusetts of the Medfield climate goal, which is to limit greenhouse gas pollution to 50% by 2030 and to reach net zero by 2050. Obviously, tonight in my 10 minutes, I can only scratch the surface of what we're thinking and what we're planning, but I really appreciate the ability to talk to you at all. And this is going to be a 20-year-long transition that requires a lot of leadership, a lot of collaboration, vision, strategic planning, and hard work. And I really look forward to working with all of you on implementing this. Tonight, what I'm really looking forward in the short term is we're hoping to have a draft ready within a week or two and get it to you. And I would like to have comments on it because the more input we have, the more we can make it robust and make it workable. And in the process, if you could also share the town's ideas on how the district is planning to reach the net zero goal. Because, you know, we have not had this conversation and it would be great to have. In the medium and long term, We do look forward to ongoing engagement and collaboration with the school and with other stakeholders. We're hoping that the school would also engage in leadership in this process, the way you're engaging in leadership in other processes in community and student education. And other towns have started, other schools, districts have recognized that leadership at the highest level in climate action is beneficial to the students, the community, and also in the use of resources, given that the most school districts own about 70 to 80% of the town's resources, land, buildings, employees. And it would be great if there would be ways to figure out how to make climate planning part of the school's policies and long-term plan policy and strategic planning. So those are the sort of ideas that we're having. In detail, our action plan, we decided to focus on the next 5 to 8 years, because this is really where we, as a humankind, really have to make an impact if we really want to limit greenhouse gas, the global warming that's happening. And so we're focusing on the highest impact areas where technology is available that can be usefully implemented. Most of those come right now with incentives and rebates, so they're economically can be implemented. And they fall in the areas of renewable energies, buildings, and transportation. Now, I have engaged in the last 8 months. I just think of you. This was a really arduous process with talking to a lot of people about this. And what I've heard back from the community again and again is that they feel the town must lead by example. And the school being part of the town, I think, is something that should really be considered. Conceptually, we will continually want to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions in all these 3 areas, in renewable energy, buildings, and transportation. It's not going to be a straight progress, but it's going to be stepwise. Sometimes it's large impact, sometimes it's harder, and we actually think if we can make a huge impact in the next 8 years to 2030, we have a lot of low-hanging fruit, whereas at the end, it may be harder to get carbon reduction because those are the tackling areas that are more difficult to tackle. So in the area of renewable energy, the goals that we've set is to produce more energy locally and also to source the remaining electricity via renewable resources. I know you can't see the slide, but but the goals are really that by 2030, 100% of the municipal power should come from renewable resources, and also that 100% of the properties in the town, where appropriate, should have solar installations. And we can go into the details later of how we are thinking about this. In terms of buildings, the school is already working with us. Amy does a fantastic job thinking about energy reduction and maintenance. We are well aware that those are large, complex buildings, and that it's going to be harder than most homes to achieve some of these savings, or a little more delayed. But we still have to continue talking and thinking about this. So the strategy there is to reduce the overall use of energy in buildings, that is making buildings more efficient. And of course, we were delighted to see that the new school was going to be net zero and net zero ready, and we hope that concept will continue to be there. And for the rest of the buildings, it's hard to retrofit, but whenever there are major repairs, we would really encourage that energy efficiency measures would be considered to the greatest extent. And the other part is to replace fossil fuels with electricity. Like everywhere, the state is making electricity more and more renewable on the grid. So the more we use electricity, the lower our carbon footprint. And the hope is that the whole town administration, including the schools, will move to 100% renewable sourced electricity by 2030. And that goal we have for the residential sector too, just to tell you, I took that out of the slides, but we're working on different strategies for each of those sectors. In transportation, we have two objectives as well. One is to electrify the municipal vehicles, and the other is to enhance low carbon mobility around town. And I think that is really an exciting topic for the school. The electrification of vehicles is really hot right now. So the electrification of municipal vehicles, we don't have a specific target, largely because it's part of a rolling turnover in the different departments, and not all vehicles have an electric option right now, because some of them are heavy duty and specialized vehicles. So that is, we can't set a specific goal for that. But we do have to think about investing in charging infrastructure, or planning for charging infrastructure. I mitigate this because really the cost of this right now is extremely low. Eversource is ready to pay for the trenching or the hardware to put the to cable it. But and then there's a Make Ready program that would pay, or Green Communities that pays for the hardware, the charging hardware. So it makes a lot of sense for us to forge forward and try and get as much of that money as we can at this point. Because we don't know, obviously, over the years how much of this will be available, but it's clear that electric vehicles will be the major form of transportation in 10, 15 years. And in fact, most of you may know that by 2035, there won't be any combustion engine cars available in Massachusetts anymore by law, only electric vehicles. So the priority action there is to follow the Green Communities criteria for gas mileage on those vehicles that we acquire, develop departmental multi-year plans on when to turn over vehicles so we can plan for the electrification of those vehicles, integrate that in the capital budgets, and of course pursue electric vehicle buses and grant opportunities that are really, really hot right now. We know that Governor Baker is sitting on $67 million from the VW diesel settlement. The EPA in April will open up grant opportunities for $17 million in electric vehicles, electric school buses only. The infrastructure bill has $9 billion, and the White House just yesterday released a white paper, and electric buses are a major part of that initiative. So we really have to think about how to get ready to, when the grants open to write it and do it. And I know there's going to be discussion on, this is not an easy issue, I understand that, but again, we need to talk about this and make a plan. And this is why I'm here. I want to offer that help to, because we're connected with, opportunities with experts, and we're willing to do some of that legwork for you. And finally, the last item is to enhance low carbon mobility around town. The school has already implemented the anti-idling law, or informing people about it, which is awesome. And I was excited to see the late bus on the budget for next year. I think there is a scope to think about how to reduce car traffic at schools in general. And one way we're talking about the whole town now is to encourage bike use and walking. That includes planning efforts, obviously, maybe bike sheds on school properties, but also I think there's real scope for education, safety and bike use education for the parents as well as for the kids. Coming from Europe, I know that, like in Germany, it's part of the curriculum in 4th grade to get a bike license and actually learn the rules of the streets so that kids are a little safer. So again, in summary, what do we feel the schools can do? So after tonight, I really would like to get comments from you and have a conversation about the plan that we are proposing. And school is only a small part of it, but as I mentioned earlier, I really think as part of our care for our young people, and especially the mental health aspect of climate anxiety in our youth and young adults, the only way to help them increase their resiliency is to see that it's possible to take action and that action is being taken. And the school would be well placed to model taking action and empowering people and allowing kids to learn how to take action, how to take information home. Large part of what we are proposing in our plan is to provide education and resources. And you know, you have the soapbox to, you have the ear of large parts of Medfield. You know, about what, 3,500 students every day in your care, and all their parents getting the emails. And if you think about this plan, 2050, nearly all of the kids that are in your care right now will be parents. Likely. So this is really, you know, as a parent, I feel very strongly about this. This is not for us necessarily, but we have to shoulder that responsibility right now. So, you know, I have a summary slide now. I hope Jeff will be able to look at that sometime. But I would really encourage conversations between us and you and a lot of other stakeholders, you know, from other towns that we have made contact with. I would encourage leadership role at the highest level at the school, whether that's, you know, one of you here, and to bring in student staff, you know, experts to hammer these things out. This is really a long process that I'm inviting you to. So thank you. And any questions?
Appreciate it.
A couple reactions on this. Sure.
Yes, please.
So thank you, this is really good stuff, and I think, you know, my heart breaks a little bit because everything you just described was in the new school, right? Everything that you described, everything was there.
It's everywhere. I mean,
So
it's
that-
residential, we have the same issue everywhere.
Right, so that was, you know, that's kind of a little tough to hear. So I understand that, so we brought you guys in right from the beginning of the project and wanted your input because we know we wanted to go in this direction, so we want to continue working together. I think that's an important piece. I know that we've talked about solar canopies in the parking lots as a way to start getting into the solar, you know, purchase agreements with other companies and those types of things. I think the electric buses are something that's going to take a lot of talk, a lot of dialogue. You know, we had done some research where a diesel bus is about $90,000, electric bus is like $300,000, and we have 20 buses. So we have to really think about how that would work. We contract that in from, and it's not, you know, you and I have talked about this.
Yeah.
You know, it's something
helpful
that,
for the rest of the world to
right,
kind of know.
you know, so we need to kind of look at that and how that would work. But I think we're certainly, you know, positioned to partner with you guys and do some of this work. Definitely.
Yeah, so if we could find some structured way of setting up a group that can regularly talk and farm out, you know, assignments or something, that'd be really awesome.
So I don't know if you saw on Twitter, but one of the snowstorms, one of our trucks caught on
I
fire.
was gonna say,
Yeah.
this is an excellent way
Right.
for us to renew.
Yeah, well, no, this is where it's going. So
Yeah.
when that happened, Michael and I looked into it, said, can we replace that with an electric truck? Because I know Ford's making those now. And they stopped production of those for the moment,
Okay.
and it was about 2 years out. So not sure we can wait 2 years for another truck, but I think those are the kinds of things that we're thinking about now.
And
Because it's
as the
important.
technology gets better, is the torque there, is there the ability to be able to use those trucks, those, you know, like, we're really talking about some very high power.
Yes, absolutely.
You know,
And I also know with the school buses, you know, because we don't own them and we don't know where Conley stands on this, but we've initiated.
I kind of do.
Well, but I can hear that.
Take a while.
But I mean, part of that would be also.
It's a
maybe
green
to come-
thing, but I'm not sure it's the same green.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But, you know, to maybe band together with the other 14 districts that Honolulu serves and say,
Yeah.
you know, just start with whatever 10 vehicles and, you know, and not everybody will have charging stations. That the other thing, you know, obviously bus parking is something that the school district will have to discuss independently anyway. But you know, I think there's scope to bring in partners from other towns, and we've also found a middleman, a nonprofit that is willing to negotiate the grant writing process, which apparently is not that easy either. because it's, you know, different people involved, different agencies, and they would facilitate that transition to electric buses for school districts. And they've already done that in Beverly, and I've been trying to get in touch with their transportation director, but I haven't reached him yet.
So
So there are
Beverly owns
options.
their own buses, right? They
Sorry?
have Beverly has their own
I think so,
busing.
yeah, they have a
Yeah, so they own
transportation
all of
director,
theirs.
yeah.
And the only reason I know this is because of school committee professional development. I went to a conference on busing.
But the point I'm trying to make is,
And Beverly has one other bus.
So it's, you know,
It starts with one, right?
yeah,
it starts with
Right.
1% better is better than 1%. I have a couple questions. Are you guys, and then I'll open it up to. Can you tell me just factually where currently New England's grid, where are we getting our power and what kind of power is it? Is it mostly hydroelectric at this point?
no,
Is it, so tell me where
So
kind of
most-
the renewable energy stream comes from,
Yeah.
and then how we actually possibly control that,
right.
beyond kind of putting solar up and windmills and.
Yeah. So, so the transition to lower carbon electricity started in 2008,
Mhm.
at which point coal and coal and oil was phased out. So between 2008 and 2020, it's estimated that the carbon reduction in Massachusetts, the emission was about 25%. That was the goal, and we just barely reached it. Mostly based on using gas instead of oil and coal.
So it's a little disingenuous to say that it's renewable energy sources.
But it's we're all in a transition. You know,
Right,
we
right.
didn't start in 1991 with MacBook. You know,
Yeah.
it is a transition. So right now, at the same time, of course, renewable increased, and that includes solar, that includes some nuclear, and some hydroelectric. The large hydroelectric contract with Canada is not gone through yet, but it's in the works. And of course, once the Cape Wind starts, that's going to be a major contributor too. So that the increase in renewables is not linear, but goes in steps too. I don't actually know how it is municipal, but I know for residential, the state mandated a 2% increase every year on average of renewables. And I think right now we're around 20%. In effect, I think we're a little higher, depending on whether you count nuclear or not as renewable. It's a huge discussion. So about, I think most of the time it's about 65% is gas, depending on the usage, which also explains why our bills are so high right now, because gas prices are through the roof. And until we get more renewables, we are hooked on the gas price. And especially the, how I talked about renewable electricity storage in municipal buildings. So what is really expensive is the gas peakers to fire up a gas generator at peak hours during the day. And that really dictates, that's the most expensive way of making electricity, and it dictates the sort of price, the floor of the price of electricity. So if we can, as a state, Eversource is pushing that, and there's going to be incentives. Actually, there's already been an incentive so that if we can store more renewable energy and reduce the gas peakers, that would really help the gas price or the electricity price too.
And then the second thing I was asking, I assume that the town itself is working with the kind of Metro West Municipal.
Yeah, MAPC, yeah, I'm
yes.
working with them, yeah.
And so you're partnering with them, and have those towns had any kind of workshop or kind of round table on how their schools are managing some of these things, and is that an avenue in which municipalities, both school and town side, can be coming together to understand different ways of how you can fit some of these things into what is traditionally enormously tight budgets, because they're, I think that my personal financial theory for Medfield is that there is no cavalry. Very few organizations feel as though Medfield with its income is eligible essentially, or as in much need as other organizations or as other towns. And I respect that, you know, we have a different tax structure, which makes things hurt a lot more. But when they're looking at grants for electric busing, which I don't expect will go to a for-profit organization like Conway, or when they're looking at grants for solar and things like that, are there resources where you can, you know, like pull together enough money from all organizations to be able to do a grant writer who can then work for all of those, work for an entire area, and how are we going to use those resources? Because I think, you know, every part of this is exactly what I would do, and yet I have to tell you that my car is 11 years old. I'd rather let it drive for a while because I'm not willing to invest in electric yet, because I need to know that I can get, you know, 500 miles to my mom.
Yeah,
No
no,
trip. So there's this kind of transitional technology issue, and then there's also a significant cost issue.
well, and
to
right
it,
now
and
we
how do we
also,
work those things out?
right, and the chip shortage and,
Yeah,
you know, the war.
the chips and,
Yeah.
and the war, and you know,
No, and so this is an interesting idea. So I have not interacted with other town schools. I know that in Dover, for example, there is basically what the Energy Committee does is located at the high school through their sustainability task force. The students actually are bringing the, you know, what we had the climate emergency declaration to town meeting this spring. They may not have the technical experts that we do, because we have amazing resources in Medfield. There's a lot of professionals that have a lot of years of energy work in various fields. So this is really something that is very special. We have networked extensively. Nearly every day we're networking somewhere regionally, but mostly with the sort of same level of organizations. So that is maybe something that we could work with you on contacting other schools and say, where are you? What can we do? Especially, you know, talking about the buses and the 50 customers that Connolly has, to see how we can, as a group, maybe slowly encourage that transition.
I mean, just from my perspective and in my experience with other districts and my colleagues, they're all doing it the way we're going to do it as part of a building project, right? Because you get that reimbursement from the state, and it's a big upfront expense. So if you're going to get part of that paid for by the state, it makes total sense to do it at that point. So a lot of the newer buildings that are being built all around us are, you know, incorporating that. So I think, you know, I could talk to them and see, but it'd be interesting to see it later on the agenda, you know, where we're going with the new elementary, if anywhere, and you know, how we incorporate that into the new building. So.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, but yeah, as I said earlier, we really need to, if we could find a structure of sort of regularly talking even for a little bit, and sort of, if we don't talk, we can't address the problems, you know, and I think that would be a good start to assign tasks and think about strategic goals, and you know, how to reach out to the community, how to care for our children.
So we do have a strategic plan process that is going to start, and you know, we will be doing kind of community, you know, I'm sorry, Anime, finding my word.
Public forums?
Thank you. Oh, that's irony. I actually like public forums. You don't know this, but yes. So we'll be doing public forums. We'll be doing, and as people are kind of talking to us about what their priorities are around building around, you know, kind of future understanding, future mapping, then we'll be kind of thinking and developing those goals within the strategic plan. And I know I've spoken to Megan Sullivan about this as well. So
Yeah, it'd be great to have an idea of where the school is headed and advertise it too, you know, because I really think our kids need to know that we're taking action.
100%. I mean, we are stewards of this earth we live on, so I agree with everything you're saying. And I hope, try not to lament on the school we lost.
moving on.
But, you know, so hopefully the next school, however it manifests, will, I think there's momentum in the town. you know, but there is that slight, how much is this gonna cost? But hopefully, you know, with the education, you guys do an amazing job. Megan Sullivan is an amazing leader. And and as you said a few minutes ago, the talent on your committee. So thank you for all you've been doing, and
Right back.
And I just wanted to add, I mean, this might be a no-brainer, but I'm sure if you haven't already, the environmental club at the high school would really like to talk to you. And if, I mean, we are doing this for our children, and
Yeah.
they're doing
No,
it for their
we-
children, and got some really superstar kids running that.
We do, but you know, they're limited for their time. So that's also why I'm sort of proposing to have a sort of task force that brings in parents and teachers and students, so that the students can have a sounding board and offload some of the tasks, because we all know that the high schoolers are, you know, their time is very limited. They're really chock full of activities, but they should be able to participate in that. So it would be great to have some sort of
But there have to be adults in the room.
work
Right,
group.
we
Yeah,
can't
but
just-
I really do think
But I think you're right.
it should have really high level leadership, so that, you know, it doesn't stay in the room.
And we have student representation within that, so that they're feeling power as well. And I do understand when you talked about climate anxiety, I do know actually that that's a concern of a great many clinicians right now. It's something that people are thinking about almost all the time. Some people to the point where it, you know, it disables them.
And
But-
not only our children, but also the young adults, once they go out of our care, it's, you know, they have to make life decisions that are severely affected by this. And you know, as you said, people get paralyzed or worse, you know, and the national statistics that show that. And I think we have very great responsibility there.
Thank you, Billy. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And
Excellent.
we will, tell me, you, in your first or second letter to me, you said that has the action plan
Yeah,
been
so-
released yet?
We were supposed to have it ready by the end of March, and I'm pushing my work groups to give me the drafts, and hopefully in a couple
Feel
of
your
weeks,
pain.
hopefully you have a draft, but it's not a public draft yet.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's been a long journey. I was thinking when you said it's a lot of work to reach out to people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I
Excellent.
appreciate you coming tonight. I appreciate your time. We will do more than just take it under advisement. We'll try to put together something and keep on top of it. Do I have any public input on the on Hilly's presentation to the district or anything? Okay. Our next item is the new school committee member. We know that we will have at least one new school committee member coming up in, yeah, sorry, Megan. Give yourself comfy for another meeting or so. And conceivably two. So I wanted to have a conversation. What?
Oh, go ahead.
I wanted to have a conversation, I guess, with just MMA. Sorry, folks. About, and I know I had actually spoken to you individually, MMA, about whatever or whomever comes in, kind of working out not only have more structured kind of onboarding process than I think any of us experienced, because the first year and a half, sometimes two, and maybe your whole term of school committee is kind of like drinking from a fire hose. So having you act in kind of a mentorship reflective role for new members as they come in, while as a full committee, we are trying to support them in terms of roles, responsibilities, so that they can feel more involved and more active more quickly, instead of just feeling like they're kind of getting their feet under them. And we had been doing some work on that prior to the pandemic, and then it was difficult to kind of keep that going, but we do have a lot of
we have a
kind of, we have a,
Yeah.
Good structure.
a good structure to it.
We do, and we've got things mapped out and.
Right.
we've
So
got all-
there's that.
Yeah.
So I, you know, unfortunately, because these guys had to leave, I can't really get a robust discussion going around this, but the other thing I would like to do is within that first month, say April, I'd like to bring the MASC, which is the Massachusetts Association for School Committees, and have them come in and do kind of a school committee 101, open public workshop, so that we're all hearing the same thing that they're talking about. Our new member is able to be here, or members are able to be here for that, but also it is recorded and taped so that when I feel like there is a disconnect in the community about what it is that school committees are charged with, what our roles are, how Medfield may be different than, say, Holliston or Hopkinton, and how we operate. So I thought it would be a nice idea to invite either Dorothy Presser or our new representative, I think it's Jim. Is here.
Jim Harden?
Yeah,
Is he in the room?
he's back.
Oh, he's really
back.
great. He's
Wait,
great.
how do I know that name?
He hasn't been here for
He's great.
a while. We had,
He must have done a reorg.
the person who we were working with previously no longer is with the
Oh,
organization. So, and then Dorothy was it for a little bit, and before Dorothy was Jim. But in any case, he hasn't been out for a while, obviously. He's been off the kind of our thing for a while. And I just wanted to kind of talk to both of you actually about what would you think that would be a good idea with that?
I think it's genius. I think that's a great idea.
I don't often get called
No,
that.
because, and also, it's
I
just.
could use that.
Yeah, sorry.
Exactly.
You're really, Megan, you're wicked smart. Wicked.
And then it's something to refer to, and I think it's just healthy, and, you know, it's part of our professional development
Well,
as
that's
well,
Yeah.
to the reminders.
And it's communication so that, you know, people are able to then find, you know, they're like, what the heck does a school committee person do? Or why are you up there? Or why aren't you fixing my bus? Or whatever it is, it's, you can watch it and see kind of what the roles
Yeah.
are. I mean, I think that we're a pretty hands-on school committee. I know many other school committees that are much more hands-off. But I think that speaks to the kind of culture of our town. But it would be good to have like an educational session so everybody can see about kind of a baseline of what
I love it.
school committees do.
That's
So
good.
that would be okay with you if I called Dorothy and set that
Yeah,
up?
please.
Okay. Dr. Marston, you're good with that? I
I
know.
think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think it's perfect.
And would anybody like to make any kind of public comment about that? All right. Oh, look at this. This is the fun stuff. Jeannie McCormick Memorial Scholarship.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I ask that you approve the release of funds for the Gina McCormick Memorial Scholarship in the amount of $1,165 to Medfield High School 2021 graduate Nolan Franks. Nolan is, his transcript is there. So
Okay.
you can see that.
Doing very well.
He's
Nice
doing
work.
very well. Go Eagles, as they say. So,
Twins.
yes.
Okay, they were here one time.
Mhm.
Yeah,
talking
they
about
presented,
recycling.
yeah,
were.
exactly.
Here.
Yeah.
So we do this whenever there's a scholarship, once we get the transcript and the town can release those funds to the students.
And
So
we
without
need
your
to-
vote, they can't do that. So please.
And sorry,
ask
you
you-
know, we're running late. And no. Okay, so do I hear a motion to release the funds from the Jeannie McCormick Memorial Scholarship in the amount of $1,165 to the Medfield High School graduate of 2021, Nolan Franks, for his excellent work at BC?
So moved.
All right,
Second.
and Megan seconds, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and the motion passes unanimously. Congratulations,
Thank you.
Nolan. And to your parents. You can write that just that much little, let's check. Okay, are there other items on the agenda or since posting on March 8th, Dr. Marson?
I have none, Madam Chair.
Okay, and we will move on to old business. What I'd like to do tonight, and I feel comfortable doing this simply because we have all discussed it in workshops multiple times, is going through and doing the consent vote that we were going to do on the standardization of language in our policies. And we'll go there first. From there, we have kind of an attached we have a list of kind of votable policies, ones that we have received absolutely no comment or only positive comment on, most of which being good, voted in. So it wasn't kind of appreciable. Was it something I said?
Policy.
Good night. Thank you all so much for coming. I do appreciate it. And you guys can go too. I'm not going to shame you. Right.
Very exciting.
Hey, listen, this is a high risk sport around here. So we can do these votable policies, although I actually just looked at two of them, and if we do the consent vote, we don't have to vote on these policies that have had no comment. I know that quite makes sense, but and then there's a list of policies that people have either requested to be held, and I think that is worthy of discussion simply because some of the asking for them to be held or the comments are based on kind of a misunderstanding of what the policy is versus a procedure to be able to enact that policy, you know, and kind of I would not actually consider just discussing those policies. Did you pull a fast one on us?
I had to take a phone call.
It's very important. So I guess I feel okay about voting on the policies that have had no comments with just the three of us, but I might appreciate a more robust discussion within a workshop or at the next meeting about the policies that have had comments.
So probably the ones with comments that we've already discussed, we should discuss
in a larger,
yes, and not a workshop, just so.
no, in a larger meeting.
Correct.
Yes, yes. Yes, that's exactly what I mean. Great. Just saying, I'd like to get them through. I'd like to also speak to why they were written that way.
Correct, yeah.
Where the MASC came up with that, where in the Mass General laws we have those policies that don't necessarily go into such detail around, you know, how many meetings you have to attend, and you know, that's more procedural. Beautiful. So saying that, and then I'd like to do, well, it's actually, again, I'll send around and ask for workshop dates sometime. We could do another one because we had one scheduled for tomorrow, but between the selectmen and tonight, it just seemed like we were overwhelming people with meetings. And then I'd like to kind of make a discussion of kind of, just to make sure that I'm closing this part, discussion of next steps and kind of what we need in terms of helping Megan kind of close the loop, having been so ably the policy genius of, I used genius, there you go, you got it. But being that Megan has really been holding this football for a pretty long time, what do we need to do to kind of relieve her of this responsibility before the last meeting? So I just want to get something to put on that. So anyway, I guess what I will do is ask, after I read the list of the standardized terms as a consent vote, to cover all policies, which allows us to do a lot of changing of specifics without changing the general tone of the policy yet. We can kind of reevaluate, but these are things that the MASC and we feel strongly about through our policies. That I would like to present a consent vote to exchange gendered terms to gender neutral terms. Therefore, they, their, and chair rather than chairman, he or she. It kind of gets in with that specificity out of there. All references to school system or school department should be replaced with school district. All references to parents should be parent or guardian. Proper nouns should be capitalized throughout, i.e. superintendent, school committee when referring to this body, or committee when referring to this body, open meeting law, OML, you know, other proper nouns like that, but those are the ones that we see the most. Change all references to protected classes to include the following per the U.S. Department of Ed and DESE policies, which is protected classes, which are race, color, sex, gender identity, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, homelessness status, physical and intellectual difference, pregnancy or pregnancy-related disability. All legal references and cross-references should be live links in as much as that is possible. And all MGL legal and cross-policy references should be updated to MASC references. Medfield Charter references should remain as appropriate and citing specific chapter and section numbers. So those would be the changes we would make across the entire policy manual. Do I hear a motion to accept those changes as presented? So moved. Anna Mae, you got a second? Okay. And then all in favor? Aye. Okay. That seems like a long list, but it will save us a lot of work. So the next thing that would happen is that we will vote on the policies that that we could take a very uncomplicated vote on right now, which would be BB, school committee legal status. And this is all, we've done the second reading for all of these at this point. BBAA, school committee member authority. BBBC, school committee member resignation. That's a Medfield only policy, not a Mass General Law policy. BBBD, school committee member removal from office. Again, that's a Medfield policy. I knew I was going to clear the room on this one. Amazing. My staff members are leaving. All right. Good night. Thank you very much. BBBE, unexpired term fulfillment. And actually, I want to skip and double check on BDA, so I'm not going to go on that quite yet. BE, school committee meetings. This is one of those ones we don't need to vote, but we might as well, but because we just voted the changes in now. BEDA, notification of school committee meetings. And then BEDD and BEDF, we would actually be retaining the original, but just with changes to grammar, as we've already voted. So I think we can vote them because there's no harm, no foul, but after this, we'll be able to look at the lists of what we've done. So do I have any, can we quickly look up BDA in the, not in the packet, but on the website that we, because I was concerned that maybe in the packet that we sent, maybe the wording was a little different. So help me out with that one. I just want to make sure that I'm dotting my T's and crossing my I's, so to speak. Right. I had us put up. For those out there in TV land, the policy review is now right on the front page of the Explorer. Okay. So we're looking at EDA. My only concern is, okay. That is, I'm concerned that we didn't put up what we actually. EDA, we had agreed that we would do the date of when we would do the org or election of officers as the first meeting before the school year. Yeah. But what I looked at in the packet, it said after the election. No, well, the MASC one did just as but ours says the first one right after the high school graduation. We had an extensive conversation about that. So I'm wondering if we should just table that one just to make sure that we all understand exactly what we're talking about. Okay. So thank you. I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something there or that we hadn't translated something. So in the end, I'm going to go through and read the ones that we will vote on right now. Okay. So if we choose to, if somebody takes the motion. So we will vote tonight on policies BB, school committee legal status, BBA, school committee member authority, BBBC, school committee member resignation, BBBD, school committee member removal from office, BBBE, unexpired term fulfillment, BE, school committee meetings, BEDA, notification of school committee meetings, BEDD, rules of order, and BEDF, voting method. Do I hear a motion to accept those policies as proposed?
So moved.
Okay, so Megan so moved. Second?
Second anime.
Second anime, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. Yet another chisel at the many policies that we will need to go through. So, let's see, the second part of our conversation. Let's see. So I do think this is a larger conversation that we need to have about the list of policies that we've had kind of extensive comments on. You guys probably saw them on the Google spreadsheet. Because a lot of those are actually pretty much prescribed through the Mass General Law, but I would like to be able to have a reading of some of that input. I mean, some of it is like, you just shouldn't do these until the parents talk about them, but they kind of are just what they are, you know. And we can tweak them one way or another, but they're really so much more hooked into the Mass General laws and the best practices through the NAIC than being able to kind of largely just completely change them. And then, and I actually don't think it's a good idea to schedule a workshop right now. So we'll come to discussion of next steps and handoff. Is there anything? Oh, because we don't have Tim and yeah, I'm just going down my list.
You're right.
Be organized,
You're
right?
right. Yeah.
So discussion of next steps. And Megan, is there anything that you feel like we should make sure that we are not missing as we go through this process? Do you have kind of transfer of your records, maybe from you to Andrea or to Tim?
Right.
Kind of how do we want to, once we get people here, you know, we'll talk about voting in a second.
I have begun to transfer my stuff over to Tim,
Okay.
and Tim and I had our system, so he can help you reorganize it into whatever system.
Whatever, you know, however that's going to go with the next policy committee, and then maybe it would be helpful to have a handoff, not a handoff meeting, but a meeting with Glenn, Tim, and whoever might be on the next iteration of the policy to kind of get that going. Do you know, do you have sections, what is it, the end of the alphabet? It's the K. Is it K and L?
He did not provide an annotated list for all the sections. It was just a few of them.
Okay, so what he needs, so we need to follow up, we, meaning us, I'm not gonna say that.
Well, his comments were embedded within the policies themselves. So whereas
Okay,
it was
maybe I have,
helpful for like A and B for him to annotate it, and he didn't
Okay.
always do that. And so we just kind of had to go through it and see what his comments were, which I did.
which I might be missing, yeah, okay, so I might, okay, cool. Okay, but Tim knows what those, he would have general sense of will.
A
Okay,
couple big attachments coming his way.
all right, so I think I did not understand that. Okay. I would open this to public comment, but quite literally, there is nobody here right now. So I can say public comment and I would be following our policy, but it would be really silly.
Foolish.
So at this point, we're getting away. The fiscal 23 budget update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, as I said in the materials, Michael and I have met with members of the warrant committee a couple of times over the last few weeks, just kind of going over the basics in school budgets 101 for folks. So we've had that meeting. In our last meeting, we talked about our current budget. And the gap within the town and the school side total budget was about $900,000. So, you know, we looked at our budget and that's been brought down to around 300. So there was some talk of us, you know, what can we do to kind of help that process out? What can we do to reduce our budget? So, you know, Michael did a great job going through this and put together a couple of we'll put together a scenario in his recommendation, which, you know, I agree with. And I think there's a couple of things that you folks can do. You can look at it and say, great, we don't want to do this at all. We want to go to the meeting next week and just do our regular number. You can say that those are areas that we don't want to cut, so find someplace else to cut. So it really, you know, you have many options, or you can agree with what's there and we can move on. So totally up to you. We're open to do whatever you folks want us to do, but we tried to get a number around $200,000 if we could, you know, bring it down to that number. So we looked at moving a 0.2 math aid at Wheelock School out of the operational budget and into the ESSER 3 grant. So that was just adding an additional amount into ESSER 3 and then probably having to just move that around. It's only $5,000.
Right, so that's something that we could
We could
swallow next year if we had to.
We could, and we
Yeah.
could move it around in ESSER 3 because ESSER 3, what we put in there are exact, but we could move it or we could do an amendment if we needed to. And then reduce our operational funding by $212,000 for out of district tuition in private schools. So Michael's done some new projections with Mary, and it looks like that we'll be able to use some of our circuit breaker carryover to prepay special education tuition. We've done the last 3 or 4 years anyway.
It's just a smart way.
So that would allow us to remove that 212 from the existing FY23 budget, which would change the number by 217,332, which would look at our increase of budget would be 2.98 or 3% budget and get the number down to 39,489,616. So that was a way to do it, and it preserves everything that we were asked for. So those new positions that we want, that we think are important, all that stays. And it allows us to help the town with that. You know, one of the things that is important to remember too, that we haven't really discussed at all, is we need to get a new roof at Blake badly. And
So my son has told me.
yeah, so we've been working with the town on that, and they think that they've come up with a plan to probably get us about $1 million or so to do a partial replacement of the roof around those areas that are really, really struggling and really porous at this point. So they're looking at taking funds from other building projects and allocating that town meeting in May for us to get our roof done.
And
So-
does that then, that's the Band-Aid for the time. Is there ever a time in which around that it looks as though we'll be able to do
The
the
entire
rest, or that there's
Yeah, I
an
think-
integrated way of being able to do that?
So I think
after?
that's one of the things that we're talking about, because we need to have, that was on the plan for a while, that the capital plan and the building facilities plan, because, you know, when Michael, do you remember how old the roofs of this building and Blake?
Well, we didn't
remember?
replace the one at Blake. when
We didn't
renovated,
replace
right?
it, yeah.
So that one's close to
So
original.
that renovation was in '95, I believe, the one that
It was, I know, remember they
they finished
flipped
in
about the time I
95.
moved here, about
About
So-
2000. somewhere around.
2000,
Yeah.
2001.
So that flip took place, and we've done a lot of Band-Aids on the roof, but I mean, this would replace a major section, probably 30% of the roof, and really hit that trouble area that we've had right now. And we've had it for 2 or 3 years. It's been a
Right.
problem. So the town is looking to help us out in that regard with that 1 million to get that done sooner rather than later. So I think if we can go to the warrant committee next week, and we can share some of this reduction, for instance, it might help with getting a balanced budget and then get it ready to go for town meeting. It doesn't really impact any of the positions we want or anything we're looking at.
So I think that if I were to, I mean, if I had to look at a whole list of cuts, first of all, I don't know where they would come from.
I don't either.
And I would fight tooth and nail to make sure that any of the curricular things that we're trying to do across the budget, particularly in math, I'd be howling. So if, at least for me, if there's a way that we can use what we have now, that we potentially not be using to be prepay, I think it's just a smart way.
So it allows us to, on that
Right.
slide that we do in the presentation, what would we accomplish with the 3.54? it allows us to still do all that.
Exactly.
It's just removing, it's just the additional money that we have to carry over for a circuit breaker based on the projections that will allow us to do that. Now, if something could change between now and the end of the year, we couldn't do that, but I think we're in pretty good shape as of right now, based on what Michael and Mary had set, sit down and go over. So,
And obviously, if our out-of-district tuition funding went through the roof by more than $200,000, we would have to be, you know, that would be a real crisis situation anyway. We'd be going back to the town for that anyway.
we would.
So that's just, yeah.
But it's just a way that I think was
It's
a
a
way to
way
do what we
kind of
wanted to do in the
impact.
budget without having to really impact it as far as positions that still get that 2.2 that we feel are really important in terms of the math specialists, the additional support with aides. Again, the issue is what Megan had brought up before, is that funding cliff after ESSER 3 evaporates, right? So now we're looking, right, so we're looking at FY 24, where there's going to be some positions in there that are going to be additional. So I think we need to be, we've been very clear with the warrant committee on that so far, and I'll be clear with them next Tuesday as well, is that we're doing this because we have that ESSER money, but that disappears after FY 23. And it'll, and in fact, the FY 24 portion of that, we're going to be using for mathematics textbooks for elementary school. So,
Right.
Can you refresh my memory? So now it would be a 2.98 increase with the ESSER. I mean, thank God the ESSER grant.
right.
Not so much thank God for how we got it, but
No,
Thank
but
God.
still, we
Yeah.
have
Bad
it.
thing.
We have it, so thank you. But what would our increase be with that grant money?
But without that, we put all that in there.
Yeah,
So it'd be 3, so that's another percent. So with this cut here, it'd be well over 4. You
yeah.
know,
I
closer to
suppose,
5.
yeah, my only concern is
What's gonna be next year?
next year's gonna look really scary, and how does the town outlook?
Mhm.
You know, I suppose we have to do what we have to do, but I am thinking of where we're gonna be this time next year with the town. And
Did you say that the number was 900,000?
900, correct.
And was there a number that the warrant committee brought to you to get to cut, or did they just say, get it down?
They asked us to review, get it down, and I think, you know, they kind of whispered around 200,000 to us. So, and that's where we're looking.
Was it just you and Michael meeting with?
It was, yeah.
Okay.
It was. So I think that, you know, that's something that we could look at. You know, I know Jess had a conversation with the chair of the warrant committee as well, so. That's what we're offering up anyway as an update.
Yeah.
It's whatever you folks want to do with your budget at this point, so. We could go in next week with the same number and then, you know, talk about this as an alternative and.
I suppose, I mean, I'm sure you already are sharing our concerns for next year, and you know.
We have.
You know, where we are. as a
Yeah,
town.
unfortunately, as we've talked about, we didn't get the millions other places got, because you have a 2-year, the ESSER 3 expires at the end of FY 24. So if we had a different situation where we had millions, like others are sitting on millions, you could really do this over 2 years. If you had staffing and a program, you could do a full 2 years on this.
Is there any particular reason that the new roof wouldn't fall under the municipal stabilization fund or capital?
It does fall under both, but there's funds that are left over from the other building projects that they want to take from that to, because a new roof total was going to be about $3 million or more.
Right.
You know, so that's, I mean, I
Because
think
know
back
they're-
to,
They're taking 2 million out of free cash to put into this, I don't know if it's this year or next year. or
into
whatever.
capital.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna even talk about partial, then it wouldn't be the full 3 million. It just.
they're not
I would
asking us
say
for it,
that,
though. They're gonna hold on to it. I mean, what you're saying is that the town is going to pay for that 30% that we're doing now,
Correct.
right? So we're not taking it out of our operational budget.
no.
Okay.
I know, but I'm just saying that I wouldn't wholeheartedly say, okay, yeah, it feels like there's still kind of moving pieces to this that. I'm shocked actually to hear that there's that big of a deficit, because I thought we were in much better shape.
Well, it's definitely not there. I mean, it's, I think what they did to get most of it down was to allocate money for OPEB, which was a big part of what their issue was. And I believe they're allocating $500,000 to OPEB, so.
Which I
And
think
that's something
under
the
their,
selectmen have always wanted to do. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what they want to get that.
I think
number
part of
down.
their vision around that
Their
is to
liability.
make us continue to look, and from what I have understood over the years, to continue to look desirable in terms of bond ratings. So if we're again still looking at borrowing money for whatever the new elementary school project may be, we maintain that rating and have the amount of free cash in there that they will allow us to continue to look good.
I mean, I understand all that, but
Yeah, no,
you
I'm
also
just
want
kind
to
of
have your
explaining it
kids
out
be
there.
able to
folks
use
who don't.
classrooms that aren't flooded, you know, I mean.
Yeah,
it's
oh
just
no,
basic.
I
Well,
hear ya.
but I
My
think
kid
what-
hasn't been in a social center for a couple days.
But the $1 million in that new roof will replace all the areas we've had issues with. So the whole roof needs to be done, but the main issue is that back wing where we've had flooding for the last couple of weeks, months, especially with the snow melts, which is always a treat. That just needs to be replaced. You know, we put a zillion patches on that. So it's, the only other way to do it is do a huge bond override for all the roofs at the same time. I mean, you could do that too, but I kind of want to save our overrides for new elementary school, quite frankly. So.
Would you, so what date is the warrant committee?
The 15th.
The 15th,
Next
I knew
Tuesday.
that. I did.
Yeah, next Tuesday.
Okay,
So you don't have to take any action. I just
yeah, we don't have to take
You don't
any
take any
action,
action.
just think about it. We can kind of
think
give
about it, and
feedback.
we can present to them what we looked at for reductions.
And we don't have to go into that without, and we can go into them with our actual budget number, or we've been talking about and saying these are ways that we can manage this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's your decision though, so we're gonna give them, if we talk about it, this is one we're gonna talk about, unless you have other ones that want us to look at. Because they don't cut our budget, it's your budget, so. We try to get to one where we didn't impact what we were trying to accomplish this year with those positions, et cetera. So.
No,
I understand
am
it just
comfortable with that.
making me queasy about this, you know, in terms of we're going in for under 3%. Next year, we're not, you know.
But and Meg, even if we don't do this, we're still doing that. 'Cause
No,
we're still,
I
we
know
have the
that.
positions in
Yes,
S3.
I understand all that.
Right,
Just-
And these curriculum positions are, you know, sometimes you have to grab the bird in hand instead of anticipating,
Yeah,
you know, because we cannot continue without having the math
It's
support.
easy. Nothing.
But I think one of the things
Yeah.
we've also done too is we don't just move everyone forward, right? So we take a look at what the district needs are, and if there are positions that need to be reduced, and we've done that in the past, you know, based on enrollment or based on, you know, what the student schedules are at the high schools. We do all that movement all spring. So if a situation like that comes up where, you know, things are going really well for the math curriculum person, we'll take a look at the district as a whole and see what we need to do as far as any reductions. So it's not necessarily, you know, last in, first out
Yeah.
in a situation like that, so.
And I also feel pretty strongly about, at least in some way, kind of increasing the teacher supply budget. Because we literally have just taken, I mean, it's been
Yeah,
decimated for the
Yeah,
last
I
several
agree.
years. It's, I honestly don't.
I agree.
I had a conversation with them the other day, yesterday about that. And one particular teacher was telling me that when she started 20-something years ago, the budget was $400 per teacher. It's
20 years ago.
20-something years ago, it's been $200 per teacher for the last 5 years.
And we usually freeze it in April.
Mhm.
So, because we're just wondering how we're gonna get through it. Yeah. Well, okay, I am fine with presenting the alternative that you, Michael, worked out there. I have no problem with it. It's, you know, it is the lowest impact.
Yeah.
If the rest of you are okay with that as well, and, you know, we can continue discussing, and you can send Jeff or myself feedback on that one as I'm kind of the budget.
So
liaison.
whatever happens or whatever your thoughts are, you have to take some sort of vote.
Oh, right now?
No,
Oh, I'm
at
so
the
sorry.
next meeting.
Okay.
So either want to keep the same number, or you want to reduce it by this, or
Right.
whatever you want us to do.
So we will have that information after
Right.
the warrant committee
Right.
meeting to be, okay, and so we'll make sure we vote that. Yep.
We gotta make sure that's, there's a vote of the final number. Of
Okay.
the 20, is it 24?
Yeah.
24.
I'm glad to put that meeting in there. Okay. You're our only hope for public comment. Would you like to make a public comment?
I would like to make a public comment.
Please stand up, make a public comment.
All right, so thank you for having me again.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to run out, but the energy committee is meeting at the same time, so they were waiting. So,
Did you ever double Zoom? That was painful.
no,
I
I
did that.
didn't want to do that to
It
you.
was not easy.
So, I asked them about the electric school buses and, you know, the fact that Conley owns and that we don't, and that sort of thing. And there are, as I said, we have experts there from the EPA, from the Eversource, you know, and other experienced experts, and they said, we're not alone that we don't own the buses. This is a common thing, and this is being considered in the grant structure. Eversource is really wanting to push not only electric school buses, but also the regional grouping of you know, writing for grants. Partly because you know, that also would help us increase diversity. You know, if we can partner with Framingham or something like that, that would increase our chances of getting some of this money. But Eversource would also provide us with grant writers. They really want to push this not only for the, you know, because it's right, but they are looking at using those buses over the summer as what I said, to mitigate the peaks over the summer, to use the batteries for their peak reduction. And so they would supply us with resources to get those grants written, actual people, you know. It's clear that we'd have to probably go to town meeting to get some funding for this, because, you know, there's some matching that towns have to do. We have to figure out how all this works. And what I was going to ask you.
Actually, Kelly, we're literally not in that agenda item right now. So
Okay.
if you're doing public comment for that, I think probably, and I'm fascinated and I want to know,
Yeah.
but it's kind of a policy that we need to have it
Right.
specific to what we're doing. So let's maybe,
That's all
if you
that
want
there
to,
was
I think
to-
it's great.
There
You want
was-
to circle that up in an email and then I can distribute it.
I do.
So as
Can I have a
follow-up.
question? So if we would like to go out and make some inquiries, who do I get permission from for the energy committee to actually talk to Connolly or other school districts without stepping on anybody's toes here?
I have no toes left.
You can just do that on your.
5
own.
years in, Kelly, I have no toes left.
No, that I just didn't want to make you feel we're going out and.
No, I mean, I think it's all public information, so.
Yeah, no, but if we call Connolly and say, you know, like, can you talk to us? And they say, who are you? Then,
I mean, you know, if you, Michael interacts with Connolly the most, if you want him to give you a name and have him just
That would
give
be
him a
awesome,
heads
yeah.
up and say, this is kind of a, you know, an energy committee kind of exploration.
Yeah.
I think that probably would work.
thank you
Yeah,
for giving
no
me
toes
this
left.
time. This really
Sure.
is moving
Absolutely.
things forward.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Appreciate it. And if you have other stuff, I will make sure that I
Yeah.
send it to me and it with anything that goes to this. Oh, my goodness. Oh, gosh. Luckily, you're not on camera. Anything that happens that goes to the school committee chair email also goes to the full forward group so
Oh,
that
okay.
one, I make sure that everybody gets it and that they're all able to kind of understand. But it also just makes life more easy. So,
Thank you
okay.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then I'm going to assume that there's no other person here for public comment on the budget, unless you know.
Sorry, it wasn't on the budget, but it kind of relates to the budget,
It is
right?
related, yes.
It really is related.
All right, so, so this conversation is, we feel confident this conversation is closed, okay. Elementary school project workshop, I wondered if we just really wanted to kind of talk a little bit about what our impressions were coming away from their specific actions. Did you like the general format of that? And do you think it would be helpful in the future to continue to be able to touch base with the select board selectmen, soon to be board, in the future around not only a new elementary school project and kind of working towards that, but also I was thinking in terms of other issues that tend to be, we end up kind of being on the opposite side of things sometimes, and I think that there's a lot more way that we could be a little bit more collaborative if we're able to have kind of more informal, open conversations. So what were your impressions? Let's talk first about what we came away from the conversation thinking and believing that we all kind of agreed to or agreed to in principle. You guys have thoughts about that you'd like to put out there?
Yeah, I mean, I came late, so I apologize, but I think it is fruitful to be meeting with them. I think we just have to approach this in a new way.
Yeah.
You know, this is we've learned some lessons, and I think everyone wants a new school as soon as possible. So if that means, and I think part of it is collaborating more, that's important. I like the idea of having a listening session that first go.
Yeah, I'm good.
You know, and just really listen.
Yeah, I think that my hesitancy so much about having one immediately is that I did not see how that conversation was going to be any different from the conversations or the non-conversations.
I totally agree. But
so I really do, but I think it's time has passed and that it is important and that we need to be forward facing and thinking in a very much directed way about what we do want, not about what we don't want.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. And if people want to tell us, I just want to hear it. Yeah, great. Let's make this happen.
I wouldn't go out of as far to say that it was an enjoyable evening.
It was better than I thought it would be. I mean, you know, I'm always good for a good day.
I'm not going to call it enjoyable. Let me just, I said it. But I think it is completely necessary and probably should have happened much, much sooner because I've said it before, there's a disconnect sometimes and things that are said there, then we react to, or we say things here and they react to, and then get everybody in the same room and
look at each other in the eyes and not Zoom.
Right, okay. Or just talk and clear up some perhaps misconceptions or
I think we agree on more than we think we do.
Yeah,
and then
I think
I'm a little tired of being like on this side and they're on that side when it's really.
But I think there was just some lost in translation.
Yeah,
yeah,
you know,
and I think going forward to have kind of stipulated points and maybe open-ended questions to kind of prevent maybe people kind of going off onto.
Yeah.
Well, for a first, for a first try, I think it was really, you know, we could have structured it so that it was really. We could have structured it so it was, you know, like, are you going to answer this question, this question? But I really felt like there had been so many different people who had spoken in so many different ways and so many different times, and because of the open meeting law in which we cannot really bring all that information together, we all needed to hear the conversations that we've been having. So after this, you're absolutely right, it should be much more structured and around specific issues. But we had to even find out what the issue would be, right? So, and I think we did come to some decent conclusions, right? We know that we're, I think, close, if no cigar, on whether we submit the SOI, right? And that if we did, timeline-wise, we would hear by December, hopefully the school building committee, in whatever iteration they happen to be in at that point, would be up and running enough and have digested enough of the original plan and been conducting enough kind of information gathering that it would allow them to evaluate whether, if we were accepted, evaluate whether it would be reasonable to go with the MSBA process, or if we would just kind of strike out on our own at that point. at that point, there will be a special town meeting, probably sometime in January, to get funding for however that feasibility study is going to go. So there is kind of still a little bit of a sticking point around the SOI in terms of whether we're going to do it or not, but I felt like it's trending pretty positively because there was no, but please tell me if I'm hearing the things that
I thought that it was a go.
I didn't think it was a go yet. I didn't feel like Gus was completely in the go place.
Well,
But I think he was very close. That was my impression coming out, that we had like maybe one more kind of conversation to go before I can say, yeah. But I will also follow up with him and I will also roll tape. I love rolling tape.
I
thought
think
it
eventually
came out.
he came to it.
Okay,
after Michael Marcucci's
like, don't worry about this so much. Yeah.
explanation, I thought that brought
I
clarity.
thought he was, yeah, that's where I felt like, okay, now he's finally very close, but I didn't hear yes. Now I hear yes. Yeah, I think that that's kind of my thing. But I will, you know.
We were gonna pick a date.
And we were going to pick a date. Oh, right. Christine has not gotten back to me about the public safety, but do we have days in the next, I think we were looking at that first 2 weeks in April. Before starting from,
Don't we have to plan it with them, right?
Yeah, but we were gonna throw out a couple
but
of
it doesn't,
days.
but Megan
That doesn't.
just has to zoom in. She doesn't have to be there. So I think, can you tell me a little bit about what your schedule looks like, simply so, or if there are any high school things that are happening?
I've
we
got the
wouldn't-
calendar up now, so.
We're going to the week of the 4th.
Looking at the week of the 4th up through the first 3 days of the week of the 11th, 12th, and 13th. We know that 14th and 15th are pretty much probably no go between Good Friday, Easter, and vacation.
So just, looking at the schedule here, it'd be great to find out what people are thinking about the SOI. Because, quite frankly, Michael and I don't want to be doing it on an April vacation. We've already done it, and we're not going to do it again on April vacation. So I'd like to.
Okay, so I'll see if I can.
Know what people are thinking about that.
Okay.
Because it's due the 29th.
Okay, that's good to know.
That's right, Mike, right, 29th?
Yeah.
Thank you.
But you just can't copy and paste?
Some of it.
All right, so if it's due on the 29th, we're looking at, and the hearing really doesn't have a lot to do with that, but I do think that, we can hear about what people think about going with an NSBA process and have a conversation that is in which we were able to have you there and Mike Marcucci, who's agreed to be there. We could really be able to provide people facts about what an MSBA process would look like. Facts are important, and but it would be a helpful resource, and I think that people are going to want to talk about that. So let's try to get that maybe into the first week then of April. How's that sound? And I mean, and does the school have anything major that I'm missing?
No.
The 6th might be a little tough.
So the
because
5th
we've
is
got-
really the only, I don't know if they have a selectmen meeting on the 5th, but.
Any chance we could move the school committee meeting and have the listening session on the 7th?
I'm good with that, but then we would not have the school committee meeting until, is that next week? That
It's
Thursday?
before, it's before.
Oh, it's
Good
Maudie
Friday.
Thursday though, don't you have things?
Oh, hi. I can make things happen.
But I'm supposed to be glazing a bowl with my young son,
At 7 p.m.
7:30
PM,
until 7:30, yep, on the 14th, but that's,
could
I mean,
you
that's fine,
glaze sooner?
yeah.
It's just that
So
first
much
week for
trouble.
me, I would really love to be at that meeting, and
So you're gonna
Okay.
suggest the 7th?
I'm gonna suggest the 7th and push out our school committee meeting to the week to the Thursday after.
Yeah, that sounds fine to me. Any possibility we could move that meeting to 7:30?
Sure.
All right. So we will do the school committee meeting on, and we'll have to tell the student reps about that, on the 14th at 7:30. I hope you, Leo, and Tim are listening at home. And then we can propose the Thursday, the 7th is probably our best option for that first week.
Please.
Okay.
Is that public safety, is that?
Mhm.
And,
Do we want to look at the town calendar while we're here and just to make sure that we're not barking up the wrong tree?
am I just to assume that the survey is dead?
No.
Seem to take that out.
No, I don't think that the survey was dead. I thought that the survey was, and I say, talking about a very specific marketing third-party survey. I think that it may not happen in the time frame that we were thinking of, how much we wanted to have it happen like now or an hour. So I think it's going to be underneath the SBC, but I think that we can make a strong recommendation that there is an independent party to assess, an independent professional party to assess.
So I guess the disagreement is whether or not we do it before the SBC or the SBC.
And how do we
does it.
structure those questions? Do we know enough to know what we need
I
to
think that's
ask
good.
right now?
I just
think
feel
that's
like
what
if you
some of
give it
those
to the
conversations-
SBC and they are the ones, even if it's a third party, the same issue is gonna happen. That then they're suddenly a biased, corrupt group. If this information is gathered beforehand, it might actually attract people to actually take part in the SBC because the data is out there and it's crystal clear and it's been neutrally collected. That's all that I was trying to say.
No,
I agree. Just because this whole process is so tainted.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, who wants to do it?
No, I don't.
I mean, for the
that-
good reasons, for good
Mhm.
reasons,
I honestly
you know.
can't think of one person.
So I think to your point,
Do we
Right.
have an actual vessel that can, a funding vessel?
I don't know.
Yeah,
We
see,
can't-
that's the
can't fix a
problem,
roof,
like
so
essentially the selectmen would have to say, yes, I'm very committed to that because,
I didn't get that.
and I
sense.
didn't get that vibe. I think we're very committed to that as long as it's in the context of the legal committee that would be, yeah. And that, you're right, that is a stumbling block, but in terms of it not happening at all, I don't think that's the case. I think that there's a desire to gather two kinds of information. One that is third party, neutral, hopefully, and one that is truly literally talkback and impressions and community understanding when they stand up and talk to you. You know, that kind of more qualitative kind of experience as well.
Pete Peterson mentioned an organization that
The
helps.
mediation.
Yes,
Yeah.
that helps facilitate that type of thing. And I'm wondering if that organization also does survey work
Or perhaps.
in order to perhaps see what it would cost us, or how much time it would take, or,
Or facilitates
yeah,
public forums.
yes, exactly.
All the listening sessions, I'm not sure.
I can see on April 7th. Oh, but Chairman Marcucci will no longer be on the as a selectman. But the Affordable Housing Trust is meeting from 7:30 to 9:30 on 7th, as is the Conservation Commission, but I don't think they overlap very much. But that might be a sticking point. So I'll contact Christine in the morning and see. Okay, so SOI, I'll get confirmation about what they were thinking, and at least have them put it on their agenda the next time if I can. I'll ask Christine about that, just so that we can make sure we know where they were going with that specifically. And we'll talk about, I'll reach out to Pete and see if what he knows about the mediation and whether that's work that they would do and whether that's work that just right now they'd be interested in doing, how much it is and where that bucket comes from. Because I think it's easy to, one of the easiest ways to make sure that something doesn't happen is to just decide that there's no bucket. Like, oh, we don't have an envelope for that. So pushing that a little bit is not a bad idea. Anything else in particular that struck you from the evening? I'm sorry we didn't get to public comment. I think it was a robust discussion though. You know, I understand. And after 2 hours, you get, actually after an hour, I know it doesn't, but 2 hours in, and there's a reason I'm not in theater anymore.
That's why you have to do it again. Continue with this. Sorry.
No, it's fine. Anything else that you felt like came out of that? Jeff put away his stuff, so it's apparently time for you to be over, and I'm good with that. I want you to look.
2 years, 1 hour.
I don't want you writing down. Okay. Anything else that we're thinking right now in terms of that meeting, or do we feel comfortable with the end of that conversation? Right there. All right, I just got a thumbs up from Anna May. And I'm not going to ask for public input unless. All right, not very chatty tonight, Kelly. Okay, informational items, Dr. Morrison.
I have none other than what I put in your materials, which is a great letter about the seal by literacy. Just take a look at that. That's something the district's been working on. Ellen Tubman's done a great job with that, bringing that to our students and giving that opportunity for students to graduate with that seal by literacy. So our kids have been great with that, and they've really taken to it. So just take a look at that. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me or reach out
Or
to
Ellen
Ellen.
has come in and presented to
She
that
has.
within the last few years.
She has.
Okay. I do have one informational item, and you guys are just going to have to tolerate it. And then, you know, you guys can, but, and this is unfortunate, but it was put to my attention rightly after Dr. Morrison's review last month that I had stated that his overall rating for the 2-year period was proficient, even though his performance on 3 of the 5 standards would deemed in summary to be exemplary. So for the record, I would like to apologize because that is a calculation error, and that indeed actually makes Dr. Morrison's rating exemplary. I would also like to say that there is no financial gain or privilege that Dr. Marsden gets from a change in rating. It's simply that I want to tell him and acknowledge that I messed up and we appreciate it. And you have to go through the excruciating experience of hearing us praise you and appreciate you again.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay. Okay, future agenda items. We have Health Advisory Committee, Medfield Outreach. Hopefully we'll be able to come. We were going to kind of have them come this week, but things just got kind of packed. DESE COVID-19 guidance. I was really hoping that was the end of that one. I was so excited it wasn't on this one. And continuing policy manual updates. We do need to set up a workshop for policy at some point. But our next meeting is on March 24th, 2022.
Sorry, Jess, health advisory update. So Medfield Outreach and is head of what is that for?
Health Advisory and Medfield Outreach?
Yeah, did you just say that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I had asked them both to come into this meeting and
the new director of health, right?
would be part of that.
Okay, good.
Yes, Mary would be part of that.
So
Mary,
Mary,
yes.
Cheryl will be there.
Okay, yeah. Do we have the results from that Metro West?
And we won't have the results from Metro
Usually
West
summer.
for another, several months.
Usually July.
It usually takes
July we
them
get them.
a long time to crunch that.
Yeah, okay.
Remarkably
We haven't
long
had it
time.
on
I always
the
think,
sixth,
really?
did we?
Um,
Yeah, it's a lot.
So they skipped the 2021.
That's right.
So, and we do have our warrant committee session next week, the 15th. So anybody who would like to be there, certainly feel free to be there. Do I hear a motion? I know you don't want to, but do I hear a motion to adjourn? So moved. Anna Mae says, and Megan, is that a second?
Sure is.
All right, all in favor?
Hi.
Aye. This motion passes and the meeting is adjourned at 9:27.
All right.